Thank you very much. I want to take care of two small items, then we'll get started. I want to report to you, because I'm part of your property, what happened to me in Jamaica and how important it was to attend the conference on Marcus Garvey in the island where Marcus Garvey was born. It was very significant because Caribbean scholars, mostly top-flight Jamaican scholars, African scholars, some Afro-American scholars, two white women scholars who was about as out of place as a third thumb, but they're trying to establish themselves in the field as the Garvey authorities, and they'll probably succeed, and everybody go to them now for the answers instead of us. But they were there with their spiel. The important thing at a conference on Marcus Garvey in Jamaica is that we're dealing with a contradiction. It's the first time I had been in Jamaica since Seaga. On the night of his election, I was debating on WLIB, and WLIB stayed on late that night. Basil Wilson, who was a Jamaican, and I was debating about what this would mean for the whole Caribbean area. And I said that this means the recolonization of the whole Caribbean area, that it's changed, it would now change from an English sphere of influence to an American sphere of influence. I said, if you think the British as thugs were bad, now you've got some thugs now who won't even clean a knife before they cut your throat. So some black Seaga reporters called the station and asked to speak to me. They said, we know you, we know who you are, we know how you look. If you come to Jamaica again, from the airport, you're going straight to a Jamaican jail or to a Jamaican undertaker. I decided I'm going to risk it. Ain't nothing happened. Ain't nobody threatened me. All good Jamaican friends there to meet me and greet me and to feed me until I could barely walk. Good Jamaican food, good breakfasts. Remind me, it's been so many years since I had kingfish and boiled bananas for breakfast. It was a good homecoming among friends and among people that I had been in many battles with. But the conference itself, except for the contradiction of the two Caucasian women who really didn't have that much to say, the conference itself was very fulfilling. Contradictory too, because some of the most able scholars, all radical, mostly to the left, were there. And while we were there, they gave medals to the Jamaicans who had participated in the invasion of Grenada. The invasion of Grenada is what turned the Caribbean area into an American lake, a sphere of American influence. Jamaica had not improved by virtue of it. There's unemployment, widespread. Young men find very little to do, and most of them who don't want to go into the army are being turned into little thugs. You half of the time you can't even open your car window if it stops for a light. I'm saying that criminality is being produced by virtue of circumstance in an island that I call the Nigeria of the Caribbean, because Jamaica has everything. It could feed itself as rainfall, a lot of greenery, a lot of land that's can be productive that's not productive. And when I asked, when everybody, there were so many people there who were nationalists and down with Garvey and everything, and I just stopped the whole thing still by asking, is there anyone here wearing a pair of shoes made in Jamaica by a Jamaican with leather from a Jamaican cow? Is anybody here wearing a shirt made from cloth or cotton grown in Jamaica? No answer. Because they had lost something which still seemed to have been lost throughout the whole of the African world. That is the concept of nation. That was Marcus Garvey's great gift, a reminder to the African world to regain the concept of nation again. And near the end of the lecture, when everybody got so enthusiastic that they're going to install Garvey again, I said, you can get all happy about a dead Marcus Garvey, 47 years dead. But you're not living any Garveyism on this island or any place in the Caribbean. There's a political atmosphere in the Caribbean islands where if Marcus Garvey were alive advocating the absolute same thing, he might be stoned to death. And I asked, where would Marcus Garvey be safe? In the whole of the Caribbean area. People both through the invasion of Grenada, every progressive Caribbean radical either being killed at home or driven away from home. A conservative group taken over, mostly mixed breed, mulatto types, color prejudice growing more intense. Here's where they would speak of a brown society and a red man society. Now when they say brown in Jamaica, they mean brown. That don't have no meaning here at all. Because a brown-skinned black person and a black person, the lynch mob don't make no difference at all, and a taxi cab driver will just pass up one just as quick as the other one. But in Jamaica, that's a separate job category, separate educational category, and sometimes a separate neighborhood. Jamaica is the most stratified of all the islands along color and class lines. But one of the redeeming things on the platform, Jamaica's leading communist, Trevor Monroe, delivered one of the most fiery indictments of the party and most critical analysis I've ever heard in my life. He said, we have forgotten that this is an island mainly of black people, and this is a society mainly of black people, and we're not going to make the new Jamaica until we understand that. And any time a person is far to the left as Trevor Monroe, he teaches at the university, he's a PhD, he's a fine scholar. But I happen to think part of his left-leaning is a fake. He was born in the middle class of the brown society, but he wants a reputation as a radical. He's been kind of apologizing for that. And he couldn't help with the fact he was born moderately wealthy. And yet he's Jamaica's leading communist. He's also one of his most brilliant minds. And we noticed, when it was a lady that brought this up, that when everybody else spoke, the media didn't turn on the lights to put it on television that evening. But when he spoke, they did that. So now they will reflect what he said and they'll forget what the rest of us said. But be that as it may, it was a meaningful thing for me personally to be in an island where I spent a lot of time. When I was writing the Garvey book, I spent 4 summers there and part of some other time. I did something which I rarely do on a book. I accepted literally demanded a large advance, $10,000 before I finished the book. So I went to Jamaica and lived beyond my means. I'm glad somebody benefited from it. House, made everything, got the whole works. My little daughter, that was before my son was born. So I have fond memories of the island, also some pain, because the island has never made the best of itself. The Rastas were there and fully debating everything, and also bringing forth about the only advocacy of a true African culture in Jamaica, in spite of the fact that I think on some points the Rastas are a little bit mixed up, but be that as it may. They're confused by Haile Selassie, but I know you don't argue about a Rasta and about a Rasta's affection for Haile Selassie. You don't, that's the point, you just leave alone. Because you're wasting your time anyway, so time can be better spent. But the Rastas who spoke up quite nicely and very articulate said that we don't bend. This is what we believe, and the Rastas do not bend. No compromise, no nothing. And they brought up the fact that the reggae singer, musician who followed Bob Marley was Peter Tosh. And there was no use for him being murdered. He was a popular cultural hero. And his influence was growing in Jamaica. And all he was singing was freedom songs from the point of view of the Rastas. I think eventually the government might feel threatened by them and turn against them. Why I've spoken about Jamaica is that in addition to being the largest island, has one of the better university educational system. It is the island that was expected to lead the whole of the Caribbean and could have done that in regard to the whole of the Caribbean. It has the mind to do it. It has the intellects to do it. It has the technicians to be the builders of the Caribbean, and yet they have not fulfilled that mission. They're a little bit shamefaced about Seaga. They kept telling you these are Lebanese. Stop lying to me about being a Lebanese. This is a Boston white man and a con man. He came in and put something over on you, took over. And with all the brilliant minds born in Jamaica, you tell me you can't find a single Jamaican to lead you. You got to go to Boston and get a hustler. Come on, knock it off. But I got back safely, and those who promised to kill me didn't kill me. And I was surrounded by wonderful friends, good intellects who, when they differed with me, they differed with some degree of respect and affection, as I differed with them with a degree of respect and affection. And that is the way it should be. When black people differ with each other, they don't have to destroy each other about it. They can still be protective and differ with each other. The other item I had hoped to take up, and I didn't hope to take up this much time, was the series Chaka Zulu. Because so many people have written me or called me one of what is the book. There is no the book. I read 30 books on Zulu culture before I was clear about what it was. The series was an absolute disgrace. It demeaned one of the greatest people we produced in Africa and one of the fightingest people we produced in Africa. It was the Zulus that kept the whites from the hinterland. And the Zulus did not fight. Chaka in his day did not fight whites or have to fight whites. He was fighting to consolidate blacks in order to preserve the country for African people. And had he won, he might have taken more black casualties, but he would have saved South Africa for blacks.
The Return of Paul Bogle by Dan Drummond. Sooner or later, but must, the dam going bust and everyone going break out. And who will stop them? The force? Which force can stop this river of ones who already know their course? Straight up with Jerry Small, 9 to 12, weekdays, 93 FM. Kabaka Pyramid, well done.
All the politicians, them. Sure. In your face, them a smile up. Behind your back of money, them a pile up. Try to start your business and them quick for spoil up. Hey, well done, Mr. Politician Man. You done a wonderful job at tear down with country demolition, man. Civilly bang, well done, Mr. Politician Man. You done such a great job selling out the country with your business plan. Well, you forget a round of applause.
Welcome to Straight Up, Mr. Seaga, to the studio of Newstalk 93 FM.
Welcome, I'm glad to be here.
Yes, sir. And I know, you must know that I have made severe criticisms of yourself in certain areas, but you know that I give you credit in another year. So much so that in 2001, the PNP, a major PNP person told me that they're not going to be able to use that blood for blood thing against you again because the context of it has been clarified and now that they know that you were like severely provoked and almost entrapped in that situation.
Well, that's a good explanation. That's what I gave, and it's managed to survive until today.
Yes, sir. Now, before I ask a couple questions, because I know this time is short, you only have a half an hour there. I understand that you wrote an article about St. Hilda's situation here recently.
Yes.
Could you tell us what you said and what other position you take?
Well, the Charter of Fundamental Rights and Freedoms, which I had proposed to Parliament to be dealt with in the constitutional reforms, made provision for anti-discriminatory behavior.
Yeah.
And there is no question in my mind that the young lady was discriminated against.
Yeah.
But the Charter also makes a provision to deal with situation in which if the discrimination is considered to be, or the response to the discrimination is considered to be equally discriminatory, then that would not stand as unconstitutional. So for that reason, I said that the matter should be referred to the public defender to unravel it. I understand. She called me to tell me she was going to deal with it, the public defender.
Yeah.
And I understand that she is dealing with it. But I don't know what other conclusion she can come to other than that it is discriminatory.
Yeah.
Unconstitutional.
Yes. No, thank you for that. I didn't get to read it, but that's good. The other thing is that, as I had commented, that P.J. Patterson has been the third former Prime Minister to be stung into comment at the attitude displayed by Prime Minister Cameron on his short visit here. Do you not think that it was inappropriate for him to sidestep the reparations interest that we had, and instead of that to almost insult our intelligence with the prison MOU? Well, he says, he says deal, and they said MOU. What do you think of his sidestepping or almost brushing aside of the reparations thing?
He didn't sidestep it enough.
Yes.
He shouldn't have mentioned it at all.
Yes.
Because if you are going to deal with a matter that has attracted so much attention and has resulted in the constitution of a special committee that is broad-based from all the territories that are involved, and they are working towards a conclusion when they will make a presentation on the matter in a proper manner, and on that basis we'll get a proper hearing. The matter should not have been raised there at all. What it has done is it has bungled everything now, and a second chance is never as good as a first chance. And to say that Cameron has said no at this point, it's going to be very difficult for him to say yes at another point again.
Well,
so it's been very bungled.
Isn't it clear that he realized how much the government and the ruling party is compromised, and therefore he could do this with impunity?
No, they're not compromised on this stand insofar as reparations are concerned, but they're not actively involved. The only politician actively involved in that is Mike Henry, and he was one of the founding members of the movement. But at the same time, I don't think it has anything to do with the party. It has something to do with foreign affairs and how Foreign Affairs drafted the program with his people to give him a chance to say the things that he has to say. And that should have been struck out from the program at that point.
No, as you say, Michael was one of the founding members of the modern movement, because from previously the Garvites and the Rastafari have been
here. Oh, yes,
yes. But another one is Dudley Thompson. Now, I always ask some of the people, how come them stress on Seaga and Barney, and then never stress on Dudley and Barney neither?
Well, that was also known, but I'm Seaga and he's Thompson. I attract more heat than he does.
Yes. Talking about more heat.
And by the way, he was somebody who I happen to have a special liking for, although we were competitors.
I came to realize that just as our Busterman had a liking for him also.
Well, yes, and you know, at various levels, people in the political world have likings that they don't display to the public.
Yes. And Busterman had a liking for P.J. Patterson too as a young man.
I don't know.
Well, yeah. But anyway, that's the other thing now. Now, you came, my understanding is that you came to Busterman's attention when in about 58 you started writing a few articles as a young graduate, anthropologist, social. Which one are you, anthropologist, social, or both?
Both. My course included anthropology, sociology, psychology, and clinical psychology.
The other thing that struck me from in the 60s is that both of you and Dudley born abroad. Dudley is an Oxford man, and you are the American equivalent a Harvard man.
I think it's the other way around.
Yeah,
anyway,
yeah.
Go ahead.
You mean Oxford is the is the British equivalent of Harvard. Anyway, the thing is this, that you wrote a series of articles pointing out sometime in the 58 that that there were certain groups almost naturally, the same like what the PNP is claiming, almost naturally aligned to the PNP, like the Teachers Association, the Civil Servants Association, the Jamaica Agricultural Society, many of the civil servants, and some of them were inappropriately using their professional position, their job privileges to bolster and to campaign for the PNP, which was against what would you say, Sharon? Sharon, A.Webster here.
The protocol at the time,
Yes,
the civil service ethics.
And you pointed out that, in addition to pointing out that certain methods of violence and certain methods of mass, I think you referred to truckloads of beards from certain part of Kingston being in the PNP phalanx there and that kind of thing. And you pointed out that the JLP wasn't willing to respond in kind or to even show that they will stand up to certain physical threats. They would not be able to. And I think that drew Bustamante's attention to you, wondering who is this young man.
Well, I don't think that is what drew Bustamante's attention to me, because what you are saying came long after. That's in the 1970s. We're talking here about the 1960s.
But you wrote in 50s. You started writing those things in 50 years.
I wrote in the 50s, but I didn't raise those points that you're raising now about my complaints concerning the politicization of many of the areas of public work. And that came in the 70s. So he wouldn't have been there to do that. At the same time, I wrote more generally in the 50s. There were just a few articles. Because I didn't start anything to go into politics. I had never done a course in government. I had never done a course in politics, political science or anything like that. But I was just writing out of my own feelings that have come as a social scientist that have deep feelings for the people. And I did take issue with the PNP at that time. That was a step that was a fair amount of time before I took the final step of becoming involved in politics.
About 59 when you became a legislative council member.
That's right. Yes.
Now, because of your social analysis and the intellectual rigor that you employed here, a lot of people assume that you are a natural fit for the PNP. And matter of fact, rumors or talk was circulated that you wanted to go into the PNP, but you didn't want to come in at ground level. But I've heard you mention the only member of the PNP you knew at that time was Edna Manley because of your cultural commonalities with her.
That last part is true. My relationship with Edna Manley. But as for the rest of the PNP, I had no relationship with them. And at the same time, I exhibited no interest in joining the PNP. Their operations and policies and so on didn't quite fit my interests and my feelings about how people should be treated and what the government should be doing. I've always had an affinity for the Labour Party from when I was in my teens, and the problems arose in 38 and thereafter. So not having taken any position at that time, it was when I was grown and out of college that I was confronted with the realities of life that told me that the PNP is a different party altogether from the JLP. The PNP is middle class oriented and the JLP was working class oriented. And at that time the division was very sharp, and that division proceeded all the way to the 1970s when Michael Manley lost the middle class, or lost a good part of the middle class to me. As a matter of strategy, I pursued a strategy to win the middle class, and I succeeded in doing so to a certain extent.
Some of the friction that the perceived friction I think might be attributed to the fact that you were always a developmental thinker and welfare, and then Norman Manley had that portfolio as his own. And when the government changed, you took over the exact portfolio that he had. You had well-developed ideas, and therefore there would be some tension about, because he's coming from social welfare, and social welfare. What's the name of that organization? It started in
Jamaica
Welfare. You have a similar kind of bent, and in 62 you got the opportunity which you would have got in 55. The 100 villages program that you envisaged, wasn't Tivoli supposed to be one of these 100 villages?
No. Talking about little villages in the country.
Rural villages.
Rural villages. And we started on quite a quick pace. I think we got about 20 of them built before I was transferred to the Ministry of Finance, and my successor didn't really show any interest in carrying it on. And therefore it died, but it was doing extremely well. It was a program that specifically was aimed at youth and women. And we taught the women craft work, we taught them cooperative movements, we taught them home economics, we taught them all those things, and we also marketed the crafts for them so they could sit in the community center and have raw materials coming back to them and new finished work going out and some money exchanging hands. So it was a lovely program, but it needed intensive overseeing. As you can know, as you well know, anything like that covers the entire island, you have to oversee, and we covered every parish.
Yeah. I have to defer to my producer now, ask her, may we waive this break here? Because Mr. Seaga is constrained. We could maybe.
You don't have to. I'll go on with the other.
All right. Yes, now, I have been observing you from I was a youth, and I myself used to point out to some of my brothers and sisters that I think it's three things I always identify, and later on I think I'm almost sure you identified all those three things. You became the head of government without passing through the labor movement, trade union. Isn't that so? Did you ever get involved in it?
Yeah, a lot of people did that.
No, but not become head of government. Most of them, both Sangster and Bruce Gold, they had experience working in the union.
Yeah, but I worked very closely with Hugh Sharon. And in our system, what I said to you, look, you are the man in the union movement, so you deal with labor and you deal with all those issues that come up. I'm not going to touch those. And that's what we did.
And then the other thing is that you were the first head of government and prime minister who, it seemed to me, had no links with the Shearer family. And I said not Hugh Shearer, but the family that linked both Buster and Manley.
Yeah, well, that's true.
Yeah, and there was a third thing, but it has been slipping me. You yourself said that there are three traditions that you have broken. Can you remember the third one? Cause it's been slipping me for about a year now. Cause you are amused now, but I was also amused when I heard you name them.
Well, I can't remember what the third one was myself.
Yeah. Now, the other thing is, you know that like in South Africa, no two countries are they exactly the same, but in South Africa, Mandela played a key role when he diffused. But he only served for one term, 5 years, which I think it needed more than that. But I think he was tired. He played a key role in diffusing the physical danger, both inside of the ANC, like what is happening in the parties here now, of them turning on one another. The militants as against the moderates, as against the urbans, as against, and the exiles coming from outside, coming back into South Africa. Also Buthelezi, whose tribe and politics was quite strong. And if there wasn't a Mandela, maybe South Africa would have exploded as people expected it to do after apartheid fell.
It is one of the great achievements of human history, how he was able to turn such bitterness as existed racially, I'm not talking politically, racially, from the frenzy that existed into the camaraderie that eventually came out of the work that he did. And he did so by showing that he was not going to take advantage of any minority. All he wanted was to have the country being run on a basis where everybody could be exposed to opportunities. And it was a magnificent piece of work. To me, that's what has made him one of the greatest men that has lived.
Yes. Now, the camaraderie and the working and social relationship that is evident between yourself and Omar Davis. Also, I was aware that there was a civilized relationship in later years, especially between yourself and Dudley Thompson. I believe that yourself and Michael Manley were ideally placed to play a similar role like Mandela, especially what with the serious physical conflict and the cost of it over the years between the JLP and the PNP, which started from before you. People claim says you and Dudley Thompson started certain things. I tell them say this thing been going on from in the 40s, physical warfare and cost of life. A lot of people don't know about 1949, 1947, 1946, and even before and after. But as I say, yourself and Michael Manley were ideally placed to do that. Just before you comment, you have to, I forget, a lot of people have done it before me. When you got a complete parliament in 1983 because the PNP didn't participate, I think you show some restraint that other people might not have been expected to show. But I think it need to go, not only I think, Jamaica, the citizens of Jamaica needed to go further as far as what Mandela did and clear up certain things about those years of bloodletting and life that the Jamaican politics came to characterize. And as I said, Michael Manley has left, you are still here. And this is some of the reasons why I have made some severe criticism of some of the opportunities that you seem to.
Well, I thought that after independence, in the first decade, that things would move very smoothly because the development procedures that I was following and initiating were all in culture.
Yeah.
You can trace them out. Now, having done that, I expected it to continue into the 70s. But then Michael came with his socialism program, and it wasn't bad at first because he defined it as love, which is a misnomer, but nonetheless it was a way of getting the common people to understand. But he did things that would have been consistent with that definition in the way of programs that he was supporting and producing. So that part of it was tolerable, but by the time we got to 1974, which was when I moved away from just being a person in the background up to the front, not at my desire, but at the request of some of my colleagues. At that time, he took the next step, which is to go to radicalize. And the radicalization continued until 1977, when the whole program was spelled out.
Yeah.
And the whole program, as spelled out, was no different from socialism, deep socialism. And that is something that I couldn't accept. I can accept the work that is done for helping poor people. That is part of my nature. And that is what makes...
But you yourself was described as a socialist, especially with your haves and have-nots.
Socialist, communist, capitalist, everything.
You have been described as.
Yeah. So, at that point in time, I had to take a different stand. Because if I had let him go on with that, we'd always speaking Spanish nowadays.
Yeah. No, I was just going to come to that because as people will accept if they look carefully, Jamaica, Cuba was at the center of the Cold War geopolitics, right up to the breakdown of the USSR in 1991, and that was the situation, real in the middle of it.
In this region.
Yeah.
In this region. And when I won in 1980, it shifted the axis because a number of the islands were due for election in that coming year.
Yeah.
And the year after. And many of them were sort of going that route.
Yeah.
And they changed. And it made a complete right about to bring the country back to the political normalities that it used to enjoy. Grenada was the only outstanding example.
Now, talking about Grenada and all those places, a lot of similarities, although Grenada is a complete island, but it could fit into one of our parishes and reflect some of the some of the division in between families. But I put it to you that how do we pass an opportunity, because I refer to the possibility of yourself and Michael Manley carrying out an equivalent role like Mandela, which takes some doing. But how do you how would you have done? Why did you, when there was some, now remember, my old man even got involved when he was asked to do the inquiry of the Rima events and so on. And later on, when things got away more in the 80s, when things were like almost returning to them Rima jungle days in the 70s, there was some bloodletting internally between some supporters, perceived supporters at GLP, and some killings down there in Rima. Later on, you got some of the people together, and there's a well-known photograph of Desmond Mackenzie, Pernell Charles, yourself, I think Jim Brown and a few other people having some beers and playing some dominoes, and you try to cool off the situation by saying everything is alright, it's just a family affair and it has been solved. But I think you could have done differently, and probably would have reached further. What you say?
Frankly, you've mixed up a lot of different things.
Well, please unravel them for me.
Yes. What was happening is that there was an outbreak of violence in Rima.
Yeah.
And it wasn't between JLP and PNP, because Rima was solidly JLP.
Yes, that's
right.
Maybe.
And I sought to find out what was the cause of it.
Yeah.
And eventually I found out that it was a problem with a woman.
Yeah.
And it got out of hand completely. And so I urged them to settle that as a problem of its own and not let this thing escalate like that. After that was done, then that was when I went down to Rima to congratulate them. Maybe I shouldn't have drank the beer, but...
Well, it's not even the drinking, but it's not what going to your mouth, it's what came out. People say, with so many deaths having taken place over the previous weeks, it's almost unpalatable for them to accept that don't worry yourself, this is a family affair and it is now under control.
No, you have it in a different tense. Don't worry yourself because it's not going to continue. They found out the reason and they've dealt with that. It's not, don't worry yourself because some people are dead.
Yeah. But definitely, it is definite that soldiers, whether it is brigadista type or home guard type of the PNP, or whether it is the strong arms of the JLP, there were sustained physical, not only clashes, but war between PNP and JLP supporters for years, and thousands of lives were lost. Isn't that so, sir?
Absolutely. That level of involvement with violence.
Yeah.
I'm not going to trace the history because, as you said, it goes back to the 1940s. Maybe it was only stones throwing then, but
there were guns. There was guns.
Well, I don't know about that. At any rate, that level of militarism is a part of socialism. The socialist ideology says that you must give yourself wholeheartedly to the state and work with the state and put the state first, and individuals don't really count. And to the extent that there are people who are going to rebel against that, they don't have any laws that say you can't do that. They just have intensive security to make sure that they can stop if you do it, punish you in that way if you do it, and that is how you keep people under control. So socialism cannot avoid the aggression that goes with that. It cannot avoid it, and that's one of the reasons why I didn't want to go that direction at all.
No, but you can't deny that Bustamante himself was no slouch. I remember, like in 1942, for example, when some people were threatening him position on the waterfront, and even threatening him physically, he made them know that if anybody lay a hand on him, there will be blood from the horse's bridle to the ramparts, and him himself was quite handy with his own gun. And matter of fact, he was the military, he represented the military wing of the PNP. That's why when he left in 42, They couldn't even keep no meeting out the road in Kingston.
Well, maybe I should have talked to you before I wrote my biography, because although I wasn't involved.
Yes. I was not the crucifixion of Jesus either, but I remember things about it.
It sets a different stage. No, I don't know anything about those at all.
Yeah. Garth White is here.
Yeah.
Remember Garth White, sir?
Yeah, Mr. Seaga, man. Mr. Seaga, I am not comfortable about how the whole world always makes
You remember Garth, though? Yes.
Yeah, man. Always makes it look as if the boom of the 50s and 60s, the growth in bauxite and tourism, which led to that nice percentage growth, 6 or 8, and then in the 70s now, the whole world,
Have a bit quick.
imagine, sustained a drop in growth rates, right? And then here comes the massive oil leak. So you cannot just immediately dismiss socialism as the cause.
All right, Lloyd, because we have another thing to deal with.
I am glad you have given me this opportunity to explain, because I did intensive work on this, the period and the extent to which the economy turned around or turned back. And
In the 70s.
in the 70s,
Right.
in the 70s, yes, we, like everybody else, got hit by the massive increase. I think it was fourfold in the price of oil, from
And
$3 something to $12.
I talk about the worldwide
Well,
drop.
We only have 30 seconds. I'll give them done that.
if you give me a chance, I will come to that.
Yeah, man.
Having done that now, you can't just put us out there and say, well, we had a chance, but it got wiped. It was not used the way it should have been, or something. The fact of the matter is, at the same time that we were getting the negative impact of the extraordinary increase in the price of oil, we also got the positive impact of the negotiations that Michael Manley and Maya Matalon did with the bauxite companies to give us a very substantial increase in the royalties. Now, what you don't know is that that increase didn't last more than 2 years. And as a result of that, the projects that were there that were expected to be funded from that increase could not be funded anymore, and it started to collapse, because Michael Manley decided that he was going to bring education forward, and free education. In 1970, my first budget was 1975. After I made my budget speech, he went back to Jamaica House. I said, I can't make that stand, I have to do something.
Yeah,
And
and
he
you
said,
hear Mr. Seaga, you're talking about the backside.
All right, hold on, God, hold on.
Sent
We only
for
have a
my-
few minutes and we have a next thing to deal with. Sorry about that.
He
I
sent
want to
for
come to
Lee Matalon, the Minister of Education,
Yeah.
and David Core was the Minister of Finance,
Yeah.
to say, I am going to now announce free education. They say, you can't do that, we haven't worked it out yet. He said, I am going to do it, and he did it. And having done it, the increase that came about in the bauxite revenue was all wiped out in 1 year because of this substantial increase in external expenditure, in revenue expenditure that was caused by the free education.
All
So
right.
that fizzled out in 1 year,
Yeah,
and a lot of projects fizzled with it.
With that, we have to go to the last break. Talking here with former Prime Minister Edward Seaga. And straight up, Jerry Small, straight up, let's go. Welcome back to Straight Up. We in the minutes concluding an interview with former Prime Minister Edward Seaga in Straight Up here. Sharon, A.Webster is here, and Garth White. I just want to touch two cultural topics, Mr. Seaga, quickly, and then I think Sharon needs to ask her something. Now, do I remember you hinting at some care that had to be taken inside FIFA? That kind of
Side of where?
inside of FIFA, the
FIFA?
the international football.
Yeah.
Did I hear you warn about something like this a couple years, within the last couple of years?
Like what?
the kind of debacle that is going on where the subcontracting of
Yes, I not only warned of it, but I tackled Jack Warner on it, and he was the most uncouth and person that you could ever deal with, and I just stopped dealing with him altogether.
Yes, I know I remember that. The other thing, another cultural thing, Sharon, I'm going to get it time, is that in time, they overthrow the revolution in Ethiopia in 1974. It kind of marked a turn. Between that and Bob Marley's death in 81, it kind of marked a turn and a change, both cultural and otherwise. I remember when Bob died, you were the Prime Minister. And you are a man involved in the music from before even Bob made it.
That's right.
And kind of sum up.
From 1953.
Yes. Kind of sum up the whole of that potential. Because you did some early recordings too.
These recordings were done while I was doing research work in the rural areas, and at that time behind Coronation Market where I used to live, Corn Lane, Salt Lane. And of course I didn't know I was headed for that area in another life, but I just happened to be doing the research work there. And the music to me was really, really fantastic music, and it was all improvised. When people get in the spirit, what they produce then is some very, very beautiful music.
Yeah.
So I recorded it, and I took it around to the record shops to see if they would buy the LP record, and I said, no, they're not interested in that. They want Johnny Mattis and Pat Boone and all that. So for a while I went around along with them by bringing in that kind of a recording. But I never forgot the necessity that I felt that was going to have to come at some point for bringing the actual Jamaican music to the scene. And that happened in 59, coming up to the 60s, on a very small scale. But it was at a time when people had transistor radios and they could hear. Before that they couldn't hear. People used to stand out in the street when you had boxing match with Joe Louis and cheering out there because they couldn't go in the house where the boss man had the radio going. But with the transistor radio, you could hear everything going on. So they were primed for it, and they had been listening to WINZ in Miami, coming over in the nights with all that music, and they were ready for a change from blues. And the blues music just fitted in with the tempo here. But we took it one step further when we went to the ska, and from there on we were on our own.
How the sound system go, Mr.
No, hold on a minute. There's a minute there.
Can I tell you my question with the music? Mr. Seaga, given that kind of buy-in that you've had with our own evolution of our Jamaican music, there are people who feel now that reggae has been taken away from us, that it's being renamed as world music, and we're losing part of what is brand Jamaica. What do you think, or do you think, I should ask, government ought to be stepping in on this to try and protect what is essentially known as Jamaican, and ensure that there really is an opportunity then for more persons to be involved and more persons to earn income from what is significantly Jamaican?
Well, there's no question in my mind that some of the benefits that would have come our way would have come if we had not proceeded to dancehall. Here you have Jamaican music progressing one beat at a time. Ska, rocksteady, lovers rock, reggae. And if there's a change to come, it should be along the lines of a beat, a rhythm. And then you get into something now that's a total mix-up. There's no rhythm that you can call dancehall. You have DJ rhythms, which were the first to become popular in dancehall. But from that, every man make up a rhythm the next day. And so every record that comes out on the basis of I have a new rhythm. And that has confused the whole issue until I would say 90% of what is being produced as dancehall shouldn't be produced at all, because it has confused the issue of a music that could have been widely branded. Now, I don't say that this dancehall isn't being branded as Jamaica too, because it is very similar to what is going on in the United States. And indeed, we were the one that gave it to them.
Mm-hmm. And influencing electronic dance music now too.
Yes. We were the one that put those there when a DJ came down here, a young Jamaican fella, and saw the sound system. And he went back and put up his and started, and the whole thing took off from that time. So there is a link, but it has cut away the link. The link that it has cut away is now being enjoyed in Europe. Massive concerts and so on, enjoying that kind of music.
My last question is also culturally linked. In 1997, just after couple years after Bruce Golding and a couple of people pulled out of the JLP and other places, PNP, JLP, other places, and formed the NDM, there was a presidential debate, and the NDM tried to get into it. Well, matter of fact, I think they did get in, but when Golding said, let us dismantle garrison politics, and he said, that's when he made the statement that I was involved in it. I used to associate with government, and him explain what the association was like and how I used it in Spanish Town. Both yourself and Mr. Seaga and Mr. Patterson kind of say, boy, you might know about it, but we don't know about it. But it kind of isolated them away. But the thing is this now. In '93 now, 4 years before that, when Macmillan was commissioner, you saw certain things getting out of hand, and I think you sent a list of 13 people to him in the constituency who, if the police don't get them under control, the crime is going to reach probably where it reached now. You think that was, and Mr. Macmillan said him to have no evidence, you're not giving him no information?
Well, that is not my business to give him information. I should have known about it before I sent that list to him. And I did. But the police showed a reluctance to deal with anything concerning Tivoli Gardens on the pretext that they couldn't go in there when they come and drink at night and go walk around and no woman and all that in there. But it was a definite plan to isolate Tivoli Garden, and the excursions that have taken place there has been done on that basis, where they go in there and fire shots, pause, fire shot, sound like two sides fighting against one another. And it's not so. If you walk through there when all that is going on, is one set of man, you see, doing it with security forces.
So it was Dudus and his some associates that this list really was around. How did he reach to that ascendancy?
It was a struggle between themselves and Denham Town, like what happened just recently. Yes, the territory, and it has to do with drugs, of course. And it was resulting in a lot of murders taking place. And I called in the police on the basis of giving Macmillan a list, and I told him I would offer a reward of $25,000 for the capture of Dudus. So nobody has done that.
I know. Nobody has done that. But wouldn't you say that Jim Brown was above the law?
No. The law picked him up on the street.
Yeah, but that was one of, and Dudus has hardly ever been faced with some of the things that he is accused of. But Jim Brown got away with murder.
Well, I don't know what the details are in any one of the events, but I mean, Dudus has also faced that. He's been to prison.
Yeah. All right, God, just quickly. There's something about the music.
We hear already. You conceded already about the sound system when you were saying about the radio and thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, but just in this last thing, want to Claudia
mass up. Yeah, what about it? I mean, the way I must kill her, what?
129 bullets.
Yes, can you imagine? With the hands in the air.
Your hand is in the air and bullet hole all over in your armpits.
And I hear that toast. I hear that toast were drunk when the news was delivered that all is done.
Who is that?
I hear that toasts were drunk.
Yes.
When the news was delivered.
It was planned.
Yes.
The motorcycles followed them from a football match and came to the corner of Industrial Terrace.
Yes.
And another motorcycle appeared from the Industrial Terrace side and stopped them.
Yeah.
When they stopped them, now the motorcyclist instructed him to open the back of the car, and he opened the back of the car, and he did have a unlicensed gun in there, a revolver, but it's in the back of the trunk. Huh? And he had to stand up in the road while a man went across the road and spoke to somebody seated in the back of a police car who was not a policeman. And from that he just came over back and said, open fire.
I'm sorry, we have to close at that point. Thank you very much for having been here, Mr. Seaga. Thank you also Sharon A.Webster for making the contact. Garth White, Tanya Richards, my producer, and Yahin Stewart, straight up. Thank you very much, yes, sir. Straight up.
Thank you, I've enjoyed it very much.
Yeah, thank you very much.
News Talk 93 FM. Real news. Real talk. Heard everywhere.
Thank you very much. I came to Brooklyn early in the day to make an appraisal of the work of a distinguished artist that I've known for 50 years. And he was somewhat despondent because he was a friend of the radical years of the Depression. The fine Caribbean artist, and we were together in those Depression years, and when we were all so hopeful. Under a great teacher, Willis and Huggins, who allegedly jumped off George Washington Bridge out of frustration. And because we loved him, we didn't believe it. We believed it was foul play. That's not the point I'm driving toward. His point to me, because I came over to his artwork, one of our major unrecognized artists, is what was it all about? What did we do it for? 2 generations of struggle and wishing and fighting to face a generation of young people who don't seem to care, and older people who don't seem to care and don't seem to know. We started the Harlem History Club. We was with an activist called Sufi, who in Chicago was named Reverend Cruikshank, and who really started the buy black and don't buy or you can't work campaign. And we started the whole concept of black studies 2 generations before this young generation started it, or thought about it. We were in the river-to-river picket line. We remember days in the Harlem community where blacks could not even close on 125th Street, 10-cent stores on 125th Street, where blacks couldn't even have jobs or drive buses. New York City, we were on picket lines, not trying to chase, not trying to impregnate every little girl we met. And we had dignity and respect, and had youth, and now Reed is old and worn, and barely got enough strength to go up and down stairs in his own home, and where's it all went and what was it all for? And we're facing a generation who's asking questions about a cop-out generation that's not delivering anything. We never heard of crack, and we didn't know what marijuana looked like or smelled like. This is a dialogue between two men 50 years later. He came out of the Caribbean, I came out of the South. Both poor, committed to the salvation of our own people. Both young Garveyites, trying to see what we could do to redeem our own people. Now we're asking, what was it all for? We put it on the line. What kind of work did we do? Scrubbing floors, porters, elevator operators in hotels, taking the insults, surviving however we could. Now 50 years later, we meet. Here's a former fine artist, former art director in a major advertising agency. His family grown and gone. His wife's gone. He's had two. I've had two. Children gone. Mine's about gone. None of his wives thoroughly understood what his life was about. None of mine either. We could have done a whole lot of things with our lives. We could have said yes to the right people. Both of us could have been rich, because that's what we wanted. We could have copped out and walked down Easy Street. We could have been the Cadillac route, the glamour route. We went down the commitment route, trying to save a people. Amen. All right. Okay. Now what's this got to do with the speech? Probably nothing. Really? Probably everything and nothing. 50 years is a long time in the life of two people. When you've known when you've known a person 50 years and you meet and start a dialogue, say, what was it all about? What did we two people do with our lives? We were committed to our people. We served well. We served honestly. Neither one of us are rich or poor. And he was the irony of it. Both of us had a brownstone house. About the same type of brownstone house, about the same plumbing problem. But the main thing is what have we done with these last 50 years? What have we seen? We've seen two generations parade before us. What have they learned? What have they committed to? When we started out in the active years, the Italian-Ethiopian War, we thought Africa would be liberated by now. We've seen it go to the door of liberation and literally turn around or be turned around. We've seen the two branches of the African world, Afro-American, Caribbean, and Africa, get to the brink of liberation and let itself be turned around. Literally, we've seen Garth betrayed. Yes. We've seen him betrayed by his own people. We've seen his dream turned around. And tragically, in his own country, are people who will elect a Seaga, produce a Marcus Garvey, and elect a Seaga, a white man from Boston, have problems. Call him a Lebanese if you want to. This is a jive artist and a con man who came to Jamaica to be elected. Learn Jamaican folklore, learn Jamaican dialogue, studied Jamaicanese, studied the politics of Jamaica, studied the folklore and the ways of the Jamaican people, jived his way into the politics, and got elected. No black people, the folk ways, the color ways, their color preferences, and rolled in on their prejudices, knew that Jamaica was one of the most color stratified islands in the Caribbean. England had made it so. All of this has to do with something. If Marcus Garvey were alive today and ran for election in Jamaica, he would lose. If Marcus Garvey were alive today and ran for election in Bedford-Stuyvesant, he would win. Tell you something about the temperament of the Caribbean mentality at home and the Caribbean mentality away from home. A few years ago, Caribbean scholar Keith Henry wrote an article for me when I was editor of Freedom Ways called Tigers Abroad and Meek Moses at Home. I wouldn't publish it. I said it's a good article and it's absolutely honest. But if I publish it, somebody will have my head. Because it's honest, it's true. So why don't you publish it? See, it reveals something that none of us are ready to face. And this summer, last summer, in Barbados, on an intellectual tour, I delivered a lecture called The Caribbean Mind Away from Home, dealing with the fact that the finest minds that the Caribbeans ever produced never could function in the Caribbean. Marcus Garvey, and that the best minds who attempted to function in the Caribbean were killed in the Caribbean. The last example was the great Walter Rodney, killed in the Caribbean. And their finest minds functioned outside of the Caribbean, and that Black America became the beneficiary of some of these finest minds, starting with Prince Hall, who built the Black Masons. And there, in Barbados, one evening, before I made the speech, I was speaking to an aristocratic woman, and I said that tomorrow I will speak on the Caribbean mind away from home, and I will start with Prince Hall, and I will end with George Lamon. And she jumped as though I had said something about her mother that was unpleasant. She said, "You dare mention the name of George Lemon on this island?" I said, "He's only the finest literary figure Barbados has ever produced." She said, "That horrible man. He dared to say that tourism is horrorism." I said, "What else is it?" I said, "George Lamon is such a great writer. I was reading one of his novels, and he was describing rain. And he was describing it so graphically. When I finished reading the novel and started outside, I went upstairs and looked for a raincoat and quite forgot that the sun was shining. He made me feel that it was raining outside. That was greatness in writing. And she said, "Why not V.S. Naipaul? He handles the English language so well." V.S. Naipaul is an East Indian who hates East Indians, West Indians, English, hates Indians, hates his own people, everybody else's people, don't love nothing and nobody. But he handles the English language quite well. There is no humanity in anything he ever wrote.